Welcome back to The Explainer, everyone. I am so incredibly thrilled to have you here today because, well, we're going to look at something absolutely fascinating. We are talking about literally hacking the plant growth cycle. If you've ever walked through a commercial nursery and just wondered, how on earth do they produce these perfectly blooming plants so quickly and so consistently, you are exactly in the right place. Today, we're diving into a brilliant concept drawn straight from a meticulous gardener and observer named Ang. We're going to unpack the exact mechanisms behind the profit of the tip. Efficient floral propagation. It is an absolute masterclass in biological efficiency, and we're going to break down exactly how it works.
To really get why this matters, we kind of have to start with a fundamental question. What is the most efficient approach to increasing sales of flowering plants? Think about this from a purely commercial perspective. Hooking a buyer with a beautiful, vibrant bloom is exactly how plant nurseries survive, right? It's a huge commercial challenge that they face every single day. They need flowers, they need them fast, and they need the whole process to be as hyper-efficient as possible. Because when you're growing thousands of plants, time is quite literally money.
So where does the definitive answer to this massive commercial challenge actually come from? Get this. It comes from entry number 953 of author Ang's Notes on Gardening. 953. Just think about the sheer volume of field observation and dedication it takes to write 953 entries on gardening. This isn't just some passing thought or a lucky guess. This is a highly tested, meticulously observed conclusion drawn from extensive field trips to countless nurseries, plus Ang's very own hands-on propagation attempts.
Okay, let's dive into this. Section 1. The Plant Nursery Hack. Unlocking nature's ultimate shortcut for floral sales. The ultimate hack here is to propagate using tip cuttings. By leveraging the terminal growth of the plant, you get a massive head start in the production cycle. Look, when a nursery wants to ramp up sales of flowering plants, they do not want to sit around waiting. Taking cuttings specifically from the very tip of the plant acts as a biological cheat code for commercial production. You aren't just growing a new plant, you're strategically selecting a specific part of the parent plant that's going to save you weeks, if not months, of growing time. It's brilliant.
Moving right along to Section 2, Anatomy of the Tip, the biology behind the shortcut.
Just to make sure we're all on the exact same page, let's define our terms real quick. A tip cutting involves utilizing the non-flowering terminal growth of a plant stem to propagate and bypass initial growth stages. Now, terminal growth simply means the very end, literally the tip of the stem. The key detail to pull from Ang's notes here is that it needs to be a non-flowering tip. You want the part of the plant that's actively growing outward but hasn't actually produced a flower on its own just yet.
Now let's look at the actual biological advantages of using this specific tip, because this is where it gets super cool. First, it's physiologically primed for reproduction. That is such a powerful phrase. It means the plant isn't starting out as an infant. It's already mature and, biologically speaking, totally prepared to perform. Second, it contains mature growth hormones. The parent plant has already done all the heavy lifting to develop those hormones. And third, because of those first 2 points, it's ready to produce flowers almost immediately once it's established.
And this brilliantly illustrates the real difference between your two options here. On one hand, you have growing from scratch, which obviously requires a ton of extra time for the plant to mature, develop all those hormones, and finally reach a reproductive state. But on the other hand, you have tip cuttings, which completely leverages that existing terminal growth for a significant head start. You're effectively taking a massive shortcut right past the plant's entire juvenile phase.
Which brings us to Section 3, the Porterweed proof, field evidence of the cheat code. To actually test and prove this theory out in the wild, Ang observed a specific plant, which serves as our main case study for today, the Blue Porterweed, scientifically known as stachytarpheta-jamaicensis. By experimenting with this particular species, Ang was able to see exactly how these tip cuttings behaved in a real-world, hands-on propagation scenario.
Now, what's really interesting about this observation is what Ang noted in the field. To quote the text directly, one of the cuttings managed to bloom even at such a small size. This is absolute visual validation of the science we just talked about. Even though the cutting was tiny, it produced a bloom. No waiting around for it to grow into this large, bushy adult plant. Because it was a tip cutting, it was already holding on to those mature growth hormones, and it just went right ahead and did what it was primed to do. It made a flower.
The essential takeaway from that tiny little bloom is actually quite simple. This early flowering is simply a continuation of the parent plant's reproductive cycle. It's not magic, right? It's not a miracle. It is just biology working exactly as intended. The cutting doesn't know it's a new plant. It simply picks up exactly where its parent left off.
Let's move to Section 4, Skipping to the Bloom, and see how this builds into reallocating plant energy.
So once you take that tip cutting and plant it, the plant goes through this highly efficient 1-2-3 punch of energy shifting. Step 1. The cutting's very first priority is to establish a root system. It absolutely needs that foundation to survive. Step 2. As soon as those roots are set, the plant shifts its energy into vertical growth. And Step 3. It immediately directs energy into floral development. Because it skipped the whole grow from scratch phase, it channels all its newly acquired nutrients directly into making flowers. Boom, just like that.
So the crucial point is this. The recommended approach for propagation by cuttings, especially if you're a nursery looking to maximize efficiency in floral sales, is to always pick the non-flowering tip of the stem. Making this specific choice allows you to bypass that tedious, time-consuming grow from scratch phase completely. It's a total game changer.
I want to leave you with this final, somewhat provocative thought. If nature has already done the hard work of maturing these growth hormones, why would you ever start your production cycle from zero? By observing nature closely, just like Ang did across those 953 entries of gardening notes, we can find these incredibly efficient shortcuts. It really makes you wonder what other brilliant efficiencies are just hiding in plain sight, waiting for us to notice them. Anyway, thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. I hope this totally changes the way you look at a simple plant cutting forever.